That's very interesting. And in fact, of course, clock synchronization was a huge problem that the Industrial Revolution actually drove forward, because when they built the railways, even a relatively small country like the United Kingdom, you had issues because localized time was quite a factor. And once you started going from the south of England to the north of England, you quite often found that the clocks were 15 minutes different when you got from A to B, which caused all sorts of problems with the unification of the network. Okay, so we're talking about this whole clock synchronicity issue, and certainly I can think of lots of things that are related to financial markets here, as we're discussing with Balaji Prabhakar, accelerating the cloud. Presumably, we're now at the aha moment, and that's what drove you to create Clockwork Systems.
Correct. The idea that time is an important quantity in any network. You've given an example. There's a very good book that came out many years ago called Longitude by Dawa Sobel. You may have read it. It was a brilliant book. And that was used for figuring out which meridian a ship is, so that they could use clocks to figure out where you are, let's say on the Atlantic Passage, as an example. When you come to the world of computers and computer networks, as well as distributed systems, clocks have a very important role to play. In other words, if a distributed system, such as we have in the cloud, is a cluster of machines that a user is using to perform some higher level task, so they're all coordinating. And often, if it's a system of the database type or a distributed ledger, what order are events occurring? Because events are occurring at different nodes. What is the order in which these events are occurring? Determining that, or coming to a consensus on that ordering, that these problems like database consistency, etc., they're key questions. And what has happened is, in the early days, let's say if you look at the late 60s and early 70s, when packet switching and distributed systems respectively were in their infancy, because circuit switching was the dominant form of communication prior to that, as was mainframe computing the dominant form of computing. When packet switching and distributed systems were in their infancy, an important and rather astute decision was made by the founders of the field to let go of clock synchronization. It's not easy to synchronize clocks over a jittery network. Let's assume the clock's not synchronized. The fields evolved to cope with the lack of awareness of time or a common clock by evolving very clever, very sophisticated protocols like message passing protocols to determine what is the order of events. The order in which events occur doesn't have to be the exact order in which they occur in time. It is sufficient that all the nodes agree that this is the given order. And so that's an example of something that's called consistency. Same thing for packet switch networks. For about 50 years in the world of packet switch networks, we've always said the time taken to go from node A to node B is equal to the time taken to go from node A to node B, and for an acknowledgement to come back from node B divided by 2, meaning time from A to B is round trip time divided by 2. Because I can't compare the clocks at A and B, they may not be synchronized, but I can always certainly look at the time at clock A for measuring duration. So these sort of ideas have been used successfully, in fact, to give us the global internet and now cloud computing and all this stuff, all these other things.